Storytellers Publishing presents Fetch by D.L. Strand. Narrated by the author. James Klein was dying. Sunlight squinted through the slats covering his window, drawing sharp lines on the wall, the bed, and across his face. Squirming restlessly in his sheets, his shrunken legs curled in tight as a strip of light blazed on his crepe paper eyelids, changing his dreams from deep and hopeless to fitful and stressed. Why was it taking so long to die? The walls held mementos of his past. Wood plaques faced with brass declared him Salesman of the Year. A photo showed a young, fit, healthy man dressed casually, grouped with others similarly clothed in Izod shirts and dockers. They held golf clubs. He held a trophy. Another showed him in shorts and a Hawaiian print shirt, backed by a forest of sailing masts under a perfect blue sky. Next to him, a massive dead fish hanged by its tail, its spear of a nose impaling the wood dock below. He looked happy, triumphant, invincible. That was a long time ago. The door opened and a nurse burst in. Moving with crisp efficiency, she set down a lightly laden tray, then opened the blinds and the window, allowing daylight to bully its way into the room. He moaned. "Don't be such a baby. It smells like sick in here." She moved to the closet, where his tailor-made shirts were smashed aside to make room for steel oxygen bottles and temporary plastic shelves loaded with medicines, disposable towels, paper gowns, and diapers. She snapped on a pair of powder blue latex gloves, came to his bed, and without preamble, threw back the covers. He cried out again as she removed his diaper and rolled him onto his side. Cold and clinical, she cleaned, dried, re-diapered, and then returned him to his back. She reached for the electronic control and thumbed a button, raising him to a semi-seated position. "Come on now, lean forward." She supported his weight while she reached behind him and fluffed his pillow. "There you go." He leaned back, sighing from the effort. "How are we feeling this morning, Mr. Klein?" Dropping the night's mess into a bin along with her gloves, she returned to the closet to gather his morning dose of pills. He humphed. "Somebody's in a mood." She rolled the cart from its place under the window and parked the casters underneath the bed. Perched just above his stomach, the tray held a plastic pitcher and a cup, both extruded from the same colorless gray plastic. She filled the cup, inserted a straw, then guided it to his lips. After sipping just the barest amount, he rolled his head toward the window. She stuck out her lower lip, her lipstick morphing her boo-boo face into a ghastly caricature. "We are surly. How about a yummy pancake?" He stared silently at the sun-bleached cinder block wall outside the room. "Maybe you'll change your mind when you smell it." She swept back through the door and sang, "Back in a minute. Don't go anywhere," leaving the door open in her wake. A few moments later, she returned. "Miss me?" She set a plate before him. He tried to speak, but his phlegm-lined throat half-swallowed the words, so he squeaked. He pushed out a weak cough, then said, "Squirrel." "Pardon?" She paused at the door. He cleared his throat again. "There was a squirrel." She glanced outside. "Where?" "On the fence. You scared it away." She sighed again. "Try to eat a little. I'll be right back." "Coffee," he said. It wasn't the first time she'd heard the demand. "It's not good for your tum-tum. The doctor—" His lips drew a taut line across his seamed face as he clenched his hand into a fist. Veins, blue and tall, snaked from his fingers up the backs of his hand to disappear under the thicker webbed skin of his arm. "I'll make you a deal. Eat your breakfast, and we'll see." She left again. His food lay in pieces, pre-cut and piled on the plate, giving off the too-sweet smell of syrup. He lifted the fork with a slow, unsteady hand and speared a piece, then reluctantly brought it to his mouth. He chewed mechanically, trying not to taste it. A few moments later, she returned with a steaming mug in her hand. Soggy bites lay scattered around his plate. She set the coffee on his tray and retrieved his breakfastware. "That'll do, I suppose." She rounded the bed, grabbed something from his closet, and set it in front of him. A tiny cup with 3 pills inside. "I'll be back with more water." With trembling hands, he raised the coffee to his nose and inhaled. He preferred it with cream. But still, the smell. The smell. Closing his eyes, he sipped, then flinched. He'd scalded his tongue. It had been a long time since his last morning brew, and he decided that, even with the burn, it was wonderful. She returned and eased herself into a padded chair in the corner, and producing a thick paperback book, opened it and settled in. "What are you reading?" "Pardon?" "The book." He gestured haphazardly with his hand. She held it up. Large blood-red letters spelled out, "Cujo, a novel by Stephen King." "My son says it's about a dog." He nodded. She obviously wanted to read, so he regarded his surroundings. Once this had been a proper bedroom with nightstands and a comfortable bed without rails. He knew this was the last place he would ever see. The rest of the house, hell, the rest of the world lay beyond him now. "I had a dog," he said. "Pardon?" He was talkative today. "His name was Buddy." He raised his cup again and slurped more carefully. His stomach clenched. It had to be the pancake, he told himself. "What kind?" she asked, keeping her eyes on the page. "A mutt. Short-haired. God, he could run." His gaze drifted to the wall, focused on a world that didn't exist anymore. "Squirrels. They gathered along our fence, and he'd race after them, barking up a storm. Drove the neighbors mad." She kept her eyes on her book. "Sounds like a wonderful dog," she said, her mind on the sentence she'd read 3 times. "Oh no. Terrible dog, always getting into things. Turning over the garbage, chewing up the furniture. Not that we had anything nice. Ripped apart more than a few possums, too. My dad hated him. Just about every week, he threatened to take him to the pound, or worse. Smacked him with the belt, hard, same as me." He paused for another sip and fell quiet for a moment, then spoke again. "The only thing that man loved was a baseball signed by Lou Gehrig. He claimed he caught it himself. Kept it high on a shelf in the living room. Out of reach, he thought." He shook his head. "That was his thing. Baseball. He always promised to take me to a game. 'Be a good boy and we'll go see the Yankees,' he'd say. Or, 'Do your chores and we'll catch a game together.' That sort of thing." She closed her book, irritated at what little caffeine could do. "I found him on the way home from school. Or maybe he found me, I can't recall now. Isn't that strange? I just looked down one day and there he was, trotting next to me like we were old friends. One time, I forget why, he took off after me. My dad, I mean. He'd been at the bottle. I heard him rip the belt from his pants with a crack as he chased me down the hallway. I dove onto my bed and hid my head under the pillow, but The lash never came down. Instead, he screamed. I bolted up to see him chase Buddy back down the hall with the back of his pants shredded to his knees. I raced after, but they tore through the back door. My dad waving that damned belt over his head, yelling for all the neighborhood to hear. I was sure that Buddy had finally had it, but just a second later, he barreled back in, almost knocked me over, his tail whipping back and forth. Hide me, he seemed to say. The old man smiled. As soon as he cleared the way, I slammed the door and threw the bolt. Then I ran to the front door and locked it too. Buddy and me, we snuck into my room and hid on the floor next to my bed while the old man pounded on the door, screaming how he was gonna beat my ass. You poor thing. What happened? He got tired, I guess. Just wandered off. Eventually he came back, and I had to let him in, of course, but by then he was calmer. Sober, I suspect. The old man was quiet for a moment, then said, I loved that dog. Breaks my heart what happened. The nurse leaned forward, interested now. He half raised the cup, then set it down again. It was my fault, see. Buddy, he loved to play fetch. I could throw the ball 100 times, and he'd bring it back and put it right into my hand, tail wagging, ready to go again. If I stopped for even a minute, he'd bark like crazy. It was like he was saying, what gives? Throw it already. It was one of those days you just couldn't stay inside. The cloudless blue sky and the long spring grass. I felt like it could wash us clean of the grunge and fear of living in that house. I don't know what was going on in my head. Maybe I thought Buddy deserved better than that ratty old excuse for a ball we always played with. Or maybe I couldn't find it, or I guess it could be I just wanted to get back at my old man. Anyway, he was out in the garage or somewhere with the two of us alone in the house, bored, and my dad's trophy sitting up there on its little stand. The sunlight streaming through the window made it look brand new, almost holy. I dragged a chair out of the kitchen. I don't remember thinking what would happen, just how great it would be to play with a ball that could actually roll. Folks say dogs can't smile. They don't know shit. Buddy smiled big as anything as we ran out onto the grass, dancing all around me with his tail wagging so hard it pulled his butt around with it. James looked into his cup. You ever have memories that are so clear you feel you're back in the same place again? The cool breeze lifting the hairs on your arms while goosebumps work their way down your back, with sunlight carrying the scent of mowed lawns and roses and gas motors from the cars passing by on the street. Memories that could almost make you believe that if you tried really hard, you could change the way things played out. Maybe even change your life. Anyway, we were outside on that perfect day, with Buddy jumping all over me. I cocked my arm back, and I launched the ball as hard as I could. We didn't know our neighbors, but they never seemed to mind if the kids played in front of their houses, so I didn't think a thing about chucking it down the block. Further the better as far as Buddy was concerned. He took off after it, with his tail sticking out straight behind, looking like a piebald missile, shooting low over the ground. He snatched the ball off the grass and raced back with his ears flapping in the breeze, then set it right in my hand, like always. Our doors slammed open, echoing off the other houses like a gunshot. My dad charged out, the look on his face. I don't think I'll ever be able to forget it. Like someone had peeled his skin away and revealed the devil inside. It froze me in place. I couldn't move. I couldn't think about moving. He closed the distance and, without saying a word, smacked me open-handed across my face. I hit the ground hard, the world buzzing in my head. Buddy, though, he didn't hesitate. He ripped into my dad's leg, almost pulled him off balance. It was the screams. That's what snapped me back to reality. Buddy had him by the leg, but my dad gripped that belt in his hand and brought it down like a club. It bit into Buddy's side, but he wouldn't let go. My old man hit him again and again. I begged him to stop, but he wouldn't. Instead, he smacked Buddy hard across the face. Buddy cried out and stumbled across the yard. He stood up, squinting, and shook his head. Then he bared his teeth, ready to charge again. My dad, despite his shredded pant leg and the growing red stain on his shoe, stood ready. "Come on, you little shit," he roared. If he charged again, my dad would kill him. Then I remembered the ball, still clutched in my hand. I didn't think about it. I just called out, "Hey, boy, go get it," and threw. I didn't even look first. I just whipped it as hard as I could. The old man cleared his throat and wiped a rheumy eye with the back of his hand. It worked. Off he ran, away from my dad and his vicious strip of leather. It flew past our next-door neighbor's house and bounced once on the sidewalk, with Buddy right behind. He lunged at it, but missed. It caught the edge of the curb, then shot out into the street. James' voice broke, and he paused, staring out past the decades. There was the sound of screeching tires, like 1,000 fingernails on a chalkboard. Then everything stopped. Klein lay quiet, unable to continue. The nurse reached over and handed him a tissue. He dried his face, then looked out through the window. It took 4 more years to build up the guts to leave. He sighed and set the cup down, and was silent for a long time. Setting her book aside, she got up from her chair. "Mr. Klein, are you finished?" He roused himself. "Finished?" "The coffee." She pointed to the half-empty cup. He nodded. The pills still sat on his tray. She held them up for him. He opened his mouth and she poured them in. Then he sucked water to wash them down. When he was done, she returned the cart to its place on the wall and headed for the door. "Why don't you get some rest?" "I miss that dog," he breathed. She sniffled as she gently closed the door behind. A while later, the door swung open and she swept in, a fresh food tray in her hands. How about a nice tuna sandwich? She set it down on his cart and pushed it to him. Next to the plate sat a steaming cup of coffee. "Mr. Klein?" James Klein lay in his bed, his chin on his chest. His sightless eyes stared at nothing. She swallowed hard and felt for her pulse. There was none. Tenderly, she eased his eyes closed, then leaned on the metal safety rail with her hands clasped, eyes closed, offering a silent prayer. She ended by saying softly, "I hope you find your dog." There were calls to make: the hospital, the coroner, her office. She turned to leave. A dull thump sounded behind her, and she spun around. Mr. Klein hadn't moved, but something caught her eye. A ball rolled slowly from beneath the bed and bumped her shoe. She stooped down and picked it up. It was wet, slimy, glistening in the daylight. She looked closer. Something marred the bleached cowhide, faint letters obscured by dirt and time. She rubbed the spot until she revealed, clearly written in blue ink, Gehrig. Her breath caught and her heart quickened, making her hands tremble. Just as quickly the feeling passed as wonder replaced fear. Reverently, she set the ball in his lap and placed his hands over it. Then she took a deep, quivering breath and, giving a last look around the room, whispered, "Good dog."